Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's vlogcast. I am extremely happy to have Alisia O'Sullivan, who's going to have a conversation with me about her journey with ET. But also, Alisia, she has done so much behind the scenes over the years for NPN Voice, and I think it's really lovely of her to be here with us so some of you can get to know Alisia. Hi, Alisia.
Hi, Nona. It's great to see you.
I would love to know your journey with ET, how it all started and the symptoms.
Okay, so I think like a lot of ET patients or NPN patients, it was a bit of a shock. I'd gone to give blood, almost didn't go because the day that I'd volunteered to go and give blood, I had a call from the school. My girls were at school then, very little, and one of them had got a splinter in her finger. And school at that time, well, I think probably even now, weren't allowed to take splinters out. So could mum go and take it out? And I thought, oh, I need to go and give blood. So I rang my husband. He said he'd go and see to my daughter. And I managed to go and give blood. And it was such a blessing, because I think if I hadn't have gone then, it might have been a few more months. And at that stage, they picked up that I was anemic, and they send your blood away to test it. And then the next day, my husband got a call saying, can your wife contact the GP, because her platelets are really high and we want to look into that. And so then you do the Google, don't you? And like, platelets, leukemia, what's going on? Get down to the doctors as quickly as possible. And the doctor said, it can't possibly be as high as this. It's erroneous. We'll do it again. Don't worry. Then rang me very quickly after having done my blood test to say, we need to look into this. Something's going on. Not quite sure, but don't worry. And you're not, of course you worry, because you think something's going on, and all you think about is cancer. So to get a long story short, fortunately, I had private cover. So I was able to go privately to have tests, the bone marrow biopsy, got the results really, really quickly, probably within weeks, but it still felt, a long time. And the doctor at that time said, don't worry, it's the best of this condition. You've got ET, and it's not something you're going to die with, but we'll need to manage it. So that started my journey. But again, you look at the sort of internet, and it was, you've got 15 years to live, and my girls were only about 4 and 5 at the time. I'm thinking, that's not very long. I want to be here longer than that. And I happened to find NPN Voice's website, which again was a blessing. And I managed to speak to someone called Tamara, who was one of the founders of NPN Voice, who really just advised me to be as well informed as possible, to do my research, to get the best care, so to push back to the GP if I felt that they weren't really understanding it, and to push back to the haematology department. I was at the local haematology department, and even to push back and say, could I go to a specialist unit, which is all of the things I did. I took it all down and did that. So I managed to move from the local haematology department through to Cambridge, who are a specialist, did research. Professor Green was there at the time, who was, one of the leading experts. So that gives you a lot of relief and sort of just assurance that you're in the good hands. And then I thought, well, what else can I do? And it was that patient expert bit, which I felt, well, maybe I could get a bit involved with this charity. They seem to know what they're doing. I think I came to a forum in London, met a couple of people, and because I was in publishing and writing at the time, I volunteered to help. There was a lady that was doing the newsletter, did the website, and I volunteered to help. So since that time, I've done a little bit more here and there, and been involved with the group that does, sort of develops what we do, and it's been brilliant. So I've kept informed and kept ahead of the curve, and just really manage it. There's been some ups and downs with it, but yeah, I'm here now.
That's brilliant.
15 years later.
15 years later.
Yeah.
And what was your symptom burden like, Alisia?
So I think the only symptom before having given the blood and it then being picked up as NPN was I had this constant backache, which I just couldn't shift. I kept going to the doctors, having physio. It's just a really a real pain in the lower part of my back. Not sure if that was anything to do with the NPN, but it definitely went away at some period of time. And then I did have the fatigue. I don't know if that was because I started on hydroxycarbonide. And I don't remember having the fatigue before the ET was diagnosed, but then I definitely was challenged by fatigue, that feeling when suddenly somebody's taken the tap out your foot and all your energy is just gone, and even sleep won't make you feel better. So I struggled with that for a period of time. I can't remember how long. And again, using the information from NPN, it was, well, do exercise. It's a bit like contraindicative, but try and exercise. So I started cycling, started walking, and that seemed to help. And now I don't have the fatigue. So whether or not you just get used to it, I don't. I can do a full day on, and being a mum, and I mean my girls are older now, but I just couldn't. I didn't have the time to be tired, but I was tired, and so I just have to push through it at the time. But now I am just normal in terms of fatigue. But no, nothing else. Didn't have any headaches, didn't have any nosebleeds. It was just by fluke, by going to give the blood, that it was picked up. I mean, my platelets were actually just under 3,000, which is super high when you consider we could try to be between 150, 450, which is why the doctor thought it was erroneous, because she'd never seen a count that high before. So of course it was really important to get the platelets down quite quickly, but also within the sort of guidelines of not shocking your system so that you're overloaded with then the sort of excess platelets. So
are you still on hydroxycarbamide? Are you?
So I was on it for probably about maybe coming up to 2 years, and then I seemed to get intolerant to it, so my platelets started going up again. So at that time it was suggested that I would start on interferon. And of course, you then look at the sort of pros and cons of that, and all the side effects. But I decided to go for it. And actually, I was quite happy to try it because it seemed like a more natural way to manage the platelets. And I sort of took the two together for a period of time, and then gradually came off the hydroxycarbamide. And apart from, at that time, the type of interferon I had, I'm now on pegylated interferon, but the one I had at the time, it did give me the sort of the cold feeling at night time. I used to take it at night time, used to take paracetamol and just feel like I've got a little bit of a cold in the night. Next day was fine, but I had to take it about 2 or 3 times a week, so it was quite frequent. Whereas now I'm on pegylated, I take it once every 3 weeks in a very low dose, and it's really brought my platelets right down, and no side effects. So I'm very happy to be on this particular formulation, and everything else seems to be fine at the moment, and long may that continue.
That sounds great, and the transitioning in from one drug to another seems to have worked really, really well for you.
Yeah.
As far as NPN Voice is concerned, I mean, where do you see the future for us? Because you're so involved behind the scenes with raising money from corporate.
Corporate. I mean, NPN Voice, I've always, for me, it was that being a patient expert, knowing as much as I could about the condition, being up to date on things like research, being up to date on, the trials that were going on, all those sort of things, how to manage it yourself rather than to every time you've got a headache worry going back to a doctor and going, I think I'm going to have a stroke, all those things. It's giving people confidence and helping them to be informed, but equally when there is an issue, to be able to then go back to their GP or their consultant to say, I'm concerned about this. So it's that balance really. I remember once deciding not to take aspirin, and my GP said, well, you've got to take aspirin, that's sort of a recommender. Well, actually it's not, because from what I know from my involvement with NPN Voice and being a patient representative with the NCRI consultants, who are the specialists in NPNs, that's not for ET. Yes, for PV it is, but for myself, and I thought, why am I taking a drug unless I have to? So she thought, well, she just sort of sat back in her chair and went, oh, okay then, which was great, because that was, exactly what I felt NPN needs to do, and NPN Voice needs to do. And we've got lots that we want to add to the website. We want to really ramp up the research section, and there's some areas that we've not been able to cover, but we want to also improve our range of information and update it a little bit more frequently. But because we're volunteers, and because a lot of us are sort of doing lots of other things as well, we have to prioritise, but that's the next stage really.
It sounds great. And the message I'm really picking up from you is for every patient to be their own advocate, to really
Absolutely. Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
you know, what is you're being told. And then if you don't understand something, ask.
Yeah.
Because we're very lucky with clinical nurse specialists as well as hematologists. And
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's just being your own advocate, isn't it, really?
And it's, I mean, I do some of the writing, so I'm just updating some of the real stories. And there was one that came in recently, and it was just shocking. It was a lady who she was an older lady. She'd been diagnosed with ET, I believe. I can't remember which one it was, but it was an NPN. And the consultant hematologist explained it's a blood cancer, you know, and obviously put her on treatment. Then she'd gone for a separate consultation. She had some heart problems. And had told that team, the medical team, that she'd got blood cancer, and they went, "No, you haven't. No, that you haven't got any tumours. What you're talking about?" And they really poo-pooed her. And then she felt really bad and embarrassed, and that's happening even now. And that's really like motivating to say we've got to keep getting people to know about NPN Voice and know about everything they need to know, so that they can actually push back and go, well, actually, I know a little bit more than you, Mr. Heart Doctor. You know, it's terrible, isn't it? But bless her.
I know, but I think you've given a lot of hope to a lot of people. And thank you very much for having this time with you. It's been great.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, it's great to be involved. Thank you.
Okay.